axilla. Okay, so anybody please could you tell me please what do you have any understanding about axilla? Do you have any understanding about axilla? Luna, yes. Timilsina, would you
Yes,
please
sir.
uh, do you have any understanding about axilla? No. Ivan Busra? Ivan Busra,
Yes, sir.
do you have any idea about axilla? What's that?
No, sir.
Arusdev Mandal,
Yes,
do you
sir.
have any idea?
Yes, sir.
Sir,
What's
armpit.
that?
Sir, armpit bone, sir.
Armpit. Okay, good, good, good. You have some understanding about the axilla. Uh, so in axilla, first of all, you should be able to define the axilla. What region is the axilla? Where is it located? You should be able to define the axilla, and you should know the boundaries of the axilla. What are the boundaries? It is a region. If you define this region on different aspects, then you should know the boundaries also. You should know there are some structure. You should know the contents of the axilla. The structures which are present in the axilla, they are the content, and you should know the content of the axilla. And you should know about the axillary lymph nodes, which is quite important. The axillary lymph node is quite important because lots of clinical complications are appearing with this structure. Okay, and try to make out the clinical, figure out the clinical application, how you can in different way. You should be able to know about these things. These are the learning objectives of the session, today's session. So let us begin with the topic. You can see in the figure this green region. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this one. Okay, this axilla, that is the gateway to the upper limb. It means that the structures, they are passing to the upper limb through this axilla. It is the gateway. Okay, that is a transition between the neck and arm. Neck and arm. So axilla, okay, it is a pyramidal shaped space. It is a pyramidal shaped space which forms the transition area of transition between the neck and the arm. Okay, if you see the bony structure, you will see here the clavicle, scapula, humerus. Okay, you will find the ribs also, ribs. Okay, and there are several muscles related with this different aspect, different skeletal structures. Okay, here if you see this pyramidal shaped sphere, then it is four-sided space. It is a four sides, and it has an inlet and a floor, a base. Okay, the four-sided pyramid with a base and apex. The base is the floor, this one, which forms the infolded armpit. When you raise your hand, you'll have the armpit infolded, concave armpit you will see. Okay, so that one, the floor is raised. That is the floor of the axilla. And inlet is above, which is triangular in shape. You will see the inlet, the axillary inlet, which is also called as the cervico-axillary canal. That is also called as cervico-axillary canal. Okay, so that axillary inlet is cervico-axillary means it means that the cervical region and axillary region, okay, they are communicating with this inlet. So that's why here they are continuous with the neck, and here with the floor. Lateral part of the floor opens into the arm. Okay, here So all the major structures which are passing into and out of the upper limb. So the structure which are passing out of the upper limb and into the upper limb, they are following through this axilla, this axillary space. Okay, and here the apertures formed. There are some apertures. Last time we studied about the posterior scapular region. There is a quadrangular space, upper triangular space, lower triangular space. There is a suprascapular foramen. We studied these are the some small apertures through which the different regions are communicating with other regions. Here also in the axilla, in the anterior and posterior wall, there are some apertures through which it is communicating with the different regions of the body, adjacent regions of the body. Okay, so here if we talk about the axillary inlet, the upper one, it is triangular in shape. This is also called as the cervicoaxillary canal. What is this called as?
Cervical axillary canal.
Cervicoaxillary canal. It is also called as cervicoaxillary canal because the cervical region and axillary region, okay, they are communicating through this inlet. So this inlet, that's why cervicoaxillary canal. Okay, so if you see the plane of the inlet, it is horizontal. It is oriented in horizontal plane. If you see the plane, orientation of the plane of the inlet, then that is horizontal. Okay, and somewhat triangular in shape. If you see the shape of the inlet, then that is a little bit triangular in shape. So if it's triangular, it has a base and apex. The apex is directed laterally. The apex is directed laterally. Okay, so since it is formed by since it is a triangular in shape, it must have some three boundaries. Okay, medially, if you see this one, this portion, the medially that is formed by the first rib. Medially, it is formed by the first rib, and anteriorly it is formed by the clavicle, and posteriorly it is formed by the scapula. So these three structures, they are bounding the cervicoaxillary canal. Okay, the three structure, they are bounding the cervicoaxillary canal. Here I told you this one, this is anterior boundary formed by the clavicle, and medial boundary, this one, the curve of the first rib, this one, the medial boundary of the cervicoaxillary canal, that is formed by the first rib. Okay, and posteriorly the superior border of scapula is there. So this clavicle and scapula, they are meeting. This is the apex. This forms the triangular shaped axillary inlet. Okay, axillary inlet. So the structures from the upper limb and to the upper limb, they are passing through this axilla. All the structures. Okay, neurovascular bundles. Okay, all the neurovascular bundles. Several arteries, several veins, several nerves. They leave the upper limb. They go to the upper limb through this axilla. Now, since it is a pyramidal shaped wall and four-sided, I told you, it has the anterior wall. The space has anterior wall, it has medial wall, and it has lateral wall, it has posterior wall, it has a floor. This one is the floor, and it has apex. Okay, that apex forms the axillary inlet. Okay, and here anterior wall, let us talk about first of all the anterior wall of the axilla. The anterior wall is formed here by the pectoralis major muscle, the lateral part of the this portion, pectoralis major muscle, and deep to the pectoralis major there is the minor, so it is also forming the anterior wall, and the subclavius muscle is there below the clavicle, and clavipectoral fascia. This is this clavipectoral fascia. This is enclosing the subclavius and pectoralis minor muscle. So together with these are forming the anterior wall of the axilla. They are axilla. Here the medial wall, this one. Now here the axilla is open now here. The axilla is open now here. This space is the axilla. Okay. Lateral wall, medial wall, these are all removed. The muscular structure, all soft structure, they are removed, and axilla is open. Now this is the medial wall. This medial wall of the axilla. So first, second, third, fourth, upper four ribs and intercostal spaces. Okay, all the muscles present in between them, all these four ribs, they form the medial wall of the axilla. Upper four ribs, okay, first, second, third, and fourth, and related intercostal muscles and tissues. The intercostal muscle and tissues, these all are present between the ribs. The space between the two ribs is called as the intercostal space. The space between the two ribs is called as intercostal spaces, and the tissues in them, they are termed as intercostal. If it is a muscle, then that is muscle, intercostal muscle. Okay, if other any kind of tissues, then intercostal, all the soft tissues, okay, which are filling up the space. So together with the four ribs and the soft tissues filling the intercostal spaces, they form the medial wall of the axilla. Okay, and upper part of the serratus anterior muscle also. Serratus anterior muscle. So this forms the medial wall of the axilla. Here the lateral wall. Now here the lateral wall is narrow. The lateral wall is narrow, very narrow. It is only formed by the intertubercular sulcus of the humerus. So intertubercular sulcus of the humerus, on the lateral lip the pectoralis major muscle is attached. On the medial lip the teres major muscle is attached. Okay, and this is the coracoid process of the scapula. This is the acromion process of the scapula. And this is the glenoid cavity where this head of the humerus is articulating to form the glenohumeral joint. To form the glenohumeral joint. Here, this is the glenoid cavity. Above this margin of the glenoid cavity here, in this portion, there is a tubercle-like structure, which is called as the supraglenoid tubercle. That is called as supraglenoid tubercle. Supraglenoid. Yes, UPRA. Supraglenoid tubercle. So here from the supraglenoid tubercle, the long head of biceps brachii, the biceps muscle. Okay, the biceps, the long head of biceps muscle, it is arising from the supraglenoid tubercle, passing over the head of the humerus, and it is lodged in the intertubercular sulcus. That's why it is also preventing the upward dislocation of the shoulder joint. This long head of biceps brachii muscle. Okay, and here on the medial lip of the intertubercular sulcus, the teres major muscle is attached. From this coracoid process, one muscle is appearing here, coracobrachialis. Coracobrachialis. The biceps has two head of origin. The biceps muscle has two head of origin. Bi mean two, sep mean head, two head of origin. One is the long head I just explained. The long head arises from the supraglenoid tubercle, passes over the head of the humerus, between the two, the greater and lesser tubercle, and in the tubercular sulcus it is lost. It is passed, but that is the long head. There is another short head of the biceps brachii. that is arising together with the coracobrachialis from this coracoid process of scapula. So this one is the coracoid process of scapula. From the coracoid process of scapula, the two muscles here, short head of biceps and coracobrachialis, they are arising together. They are passing downward. They form the lateral wall of the axilla, and the lateral wall is very narrow because the posterior wall and the anterior wall. Just now we studied about the anterior wall, pectoralis major muscle, pectoralis minor muscle, subclavius, clavipectoral fascia. They are forming the anterior wall of the axilla. Anterior wall of the axilla. Here the teres major, it is forming, it is contributing, not completely, but it is contributing in the formation of posterior wall. It is inserted on the medial lip. So here the lateral wall of the axilla is very narrow. That is between the pectoralis major and pectoralis minor. It's very narrow. Okay, it's very narrow. This one is the latissimus dorsi muscle. It is attached in this sulcus. This one is the teres major muscle. So this lateral wall is very narrow. It is formed by the humerus. It is formed by the lateral wall is formed by the humerus. Posterior wall, this is complex. Its bone framework is formed by the costal surface of the scapula. The scapula's costal surface. The anterior wall is removed. The space is open. All the contents are removed, and we are viewing the posterior wall from the anterior aspect. We are viewing the posterior wall from the anterior aspect, not the posterior aspect. We are viewing it from the posterior aspect after removing all the anterior structure. So here from the subscapular fossa, the muscle is arising, the subscapularis muscle is arising. Okay, and associated with the costal surface of the scapula, this subscapularis muscle. Okay, and latissimus dorsi, the distal part of the latissimus dorsi. Okay, teres major muscle and proximal, this long head of triceps brachii. These all muscles, they are present on the posterior wall of the axilla. They are forming the posterior wall of the axilla. So latissimus dorsi, teres major, subscapularis, okay, and long head of triceps brachii, because the long head is also passing from the infraglenoid tubercle. Here, this one. Okay, so these are the structures which are contributing in the formation of posterior wall of the axilla. Okay, now here I told you this wall is viewed, this is the posterior wall, but it is viewed from the anterior aspect. So this is of right side, this is of right side. Okay, this is of right side. Here axilla is communicating with the posterior scapular region. This is the quadrangular space, this is the triangular space, this is the lower triangular space. Here, for this inlet, the axilla is communicating posteriorly with the posterior scapular region. Okay, here the floor, when you raise your hand, okay, when you raise your hand, making it side, then you'll have the armpit. The armpit, you have the anterior fold and posterior fold, and between the two fold, the armpit is concave. It is depressed from external view. If you see, then the armpit, that is depressed. Okay, being concave, it is concave The surface of the armpit is concave, having the anterior fold and posterior fold. Okay, so the floor is raised towards the center. Towards the center, it is raised. Okay, and this floor of the axilla that is formed by the fascia and a dome of skin, because it is concave like this way. That's why the terminology of dome is used here. The dome of skin that spans between the inferior and between the inferior margin of the wall, all the wall. Inferior margin of anterior wall, inferior margin of posterior wall, inferior margin of lateral wall, inferior margin of lateral medial wall. So through this here it is spanning the skin that spans between the inferior margin of all the four walls. And the floor is also supported by the clavipectoral fascia. The floor is also supported by clavipectoral fascia. Here, inferiorly, the structure pass into and out of the axilla, immediately lateral to the floor, not towards the center, but this is the floor, so towards the lateral aspect of the floor. Okay, this is inferiorly, the structure they pass into and out of the axilla, immediately lateral to the floor, where the anterior and posterior walls of the axilla converge. So I told you the lateral wall is very narrow. It is formed by the upper part of the humerus. Okay, it is formed by the humerus because the lateral and this posterior and anterior wall, they are closely opposed each other on the lateral aspect. That's why the lateral wall is very narrow, and just being lateral, all the structures are passing. Here, when you elevate your hand, when you make your hand side abduct, okay, up to the horizontal plane, then the anterior axillary fold, and if you see the posterior axillary fold and anterior axillary fold, this one, okay, this fold in the living subject, when you raise your hand up to the horizontal plane, you will have the fold, this one fold, anterior fold, posterior fold, and between the two folds the dome shaped concave foci shape. So this anterior one, anterior axillary fold, is more superior in position. You see, it is more superior in position than the posterior axillary fold. It means that all this anterior and posterior axillary fold, they are not at the same level. The anterior axillary fold is a little bit higher than the posterior axillary fold. Here, this is a section. This is a section where the axilla, you can see, this is the section of the humerus, head of the humerus. This is section of the scapula appearing. This one is the first rib. Okay, this one is the first rib. And here you will see, this is the axilla. This is the axilla. It is a horizontal section. This one, the axilla, the section, this whole of the figure, that is a horizontal section. So here you will see the content in the axilla, the axillary vein, it is most medial. This one towards this side is medial, towards this side is lateral. Okay, so it's most medial and anterior in position also, this axillary vein. Okay, and its tributaries, they are present in the axilla. The tributaries are also formed in the axilla. Okay, and here with the red mark, you can see this one, red code here, red color code here, you can see this one is the axillary artery. It is also present in the axilla. Okay, and these are the section of the brachial plexus, the infraclavicular part of the brachial plexus. Infraclavicular part means below the clavicle. Brachial plexus, it has a supraclavicular part and infraclavicular part. The infraclavicular part of brachial plexus, it is also present in the axilla. So these are the content of the axilla. The axillary lymph nodes are also present within the axilla. Axillary lymph node are also present within the axilla. Are you clear? Are you clear? And lymphatics, axillary lymph node and lymphatics. Long thoracic and intercostobrachial nerves. Long thoracic nerve, here you can see the long thoracic nerve and intercostobrachial nerve. It also passes through this axilla. Okay. This long thoracic nerve and intercostobrachial nerve, they are also from the brachial plexus, but they are arising from the root itself. The from the proximal part of the brachial plexus, they are arising. Okay. Here, axillary fat and areolar tissue, they are also present. Axillary fat and areolar tissue. So these all structures, vein, arteries, and brachial plexus, long thoracic nerve, these all, they are embedded in that axillary fat and that areolar tissue. They are embedded within this. So if you want to assess this all structure, you need to clean all the axillary fat and areolar tissue. So these are also the content of the axilla. Let us talk about the axillary artery. This axillary artery, it supplies the walls of the axilla. It supplies the walls of the axilla, okay, and related region. It is the major blood supply to the more distal part of the upper limb. So the distal part of the upper limb, they are supplied by the axillary artery. Okay, this axillary artery, it is the continuation of the subclavian artery. The axillary artery is continuation of the subclavian artery. And below, when it leaves the axilla, it continues as a brachial artery. Okay. Anishrestha, are you getting? Anishrestha, are you getting? Anishrestha, are you there? Kainat Alam. Kainat Alam. Kainat Alam. Will you please talk to me? Kainat Alam, can you hear me? Kainat Alam. Kumar Budathoki. Kumar Budathoki.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Kumar Budathoki.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So what did I tell now? Just now? Will you please repeat?
Sir, your sound is not clear, sir.
Sound is not clear. Okay. What should I do? Okay, it's okay. Then just listen carefully. Try to understand. Here, the axillary artery, that is the continuation of subclavian artery, and it is the major blood supply. It is the main blood supply to the more distal part of the upper limb. Okay, when it leaves the axilla, it continues as a brachial artery. So here it is something like the name of the river are changed according to the region. The name of the river, they are changed according to the region. Brahmaputra, It is called as Brahmaputra. But the same river, towards its origin in the Tibet, it is called as Yarlung Sangpo. Okay, and the Trishuli river, it descends downwards as a Gandaki river, Sapta Gandaki, which is also called as Narayani. If it descends more and more, in the lower part it is called as Triveni river. Okay, and when it enters in India, the name is changed. So the river is same. The river is same, but the name is changed according to the region, concerned region. The river is same, but the name is changed according to the region it enters. So here also you'll have the artery is the same artery. That is not the different artery. The subclavian artery, when it enters the axillary region, axilla, then at the time it is the axillary artery. It is the axillary artery. And when this axillary artery leaves the axilla and it comes to appear in the brachium, then it is called as the brachial artery, not the axillary artery. Okay, so here the axillary artery, that is the continuation of the subclavian artery. Okay, after it enters into the axilla, that is this is the first rib, this is the clavicle here, and superior border of scapula, that forms the axillary inlet. When it leaves the outer edge of the first rib, then its name changes as the axillary artery here. So from here, can you follow my pointer, Budathoki, Rahul Budathoki or something one? Here, from here to here, it is axillary artery. Here, I told you it becomes the brachial artery at the inferior margin of teres major muscle. That is when it leaves the axilla. Now this axillary artery, it is divided into three parts by the pectoralis minor muscle. Okay, by the presence of pectoralis minor muscle in relation to the axillary artery, we divide the artery into three parts for the convenience of the study. For the convenience of the study, it is divided into three parts by the presence, by the relations of the pectoralis minor muscle. Okay, so here this part of the axillary artery proximal to the pectoralis minor muscle, this part from here to here, this is the first part of the axillary artery proximal to the pectoralis minor muscle. The part of the axillary artery corresponding to the pectoralis minor muscle from here to here, that part is the second part of the axillary artery. Okay, and from here, okay, from the lower margin of the pectoralis minor up to the lower border of teres major, this part is the third part. So for the convenience, in relation to the pectoralis minor muscle, the axillary artery is divided into three parts. Okay, for the convenience of our study and practice. So proximal to the pectoralis minor, that is the first part. Corresponding to the pectoralis minor muscle, that is the second part. Distal to the pectoralis minor, that is the third part. Okay, that one is the third part of the axillary artery. Here, the first part is proximal, second part is posterior, and third part is distal to the pectoralis minor. Axillary arterial pulsation can be felt against the lower part of the lateral wall of axilla. So here, in this portion, the axillary arterial pulsation can be felt against the lower part of the lateral wall of axilla. So against the lower part of the lateral wall of axilla, we can feel the axillary arterial pulsation. That is the clinical correlation. From the first part, there are in total there are 6 branches appearing from the axillary artery. 6 branches. Okay. They are the superior thoracic artery, thoracoacromial artery, okay, and lateral thoracic artery. The lateral thoracic artery here, okay, and subscapular artery, anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery. They arise from the third part. So from the first part of the axillary artery, 1 branch appears, that is the superior thoracic artery. 1 branch. From the second part, 2 branches appear, corresponding to the pectoralis minor muscle, the part of the axillary artery that is the second part. From the second part, 2 arteries arises. They are the thoracoacromial artery and lateral thoracic artery. Here it descends downwards to supply the lateral thoracic wall. Okay, and from third part, 3 arteries arises. The scapular artery, that is the largest branch, and there are 2 circumflex arteries. One is anterior, which encircles the surgical neck of the humerus, and anastomose with the posterior circumflex humeral artery. So this anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery, they form a circumflex around the surgical neck of the humerus. That's why the circumflex term is used. One is from the anterior aspect, another is from the posterior aspect. So anterior and posterior circumflex humeral artery plus the subscapular artery, these 3 arteries, they arise from the third part of the axillary artery. So it's easy to remember. From the first part 1, from the second part 2, from the third part 3 arteries are arising. In total, 6 branches are appearing, arising from the axillary artery. Let us talk about the axillary vein. Now here it begins. Just you need to learn the course opposite to the artery from below. So here the axillary vein, it begins at the lower margin of the teres major muscle. This one is the teres major muscle and lower margin of the teres major muscle. So it ascends upward, and when it leaves the axilla, that is the outer margin of the first rib. This one is the first rib, this one. When this is the outer margin, this one, and this is the inner margin. When it leaves the axilla, then that is the subclavian vein. Okay, that is the subclavian vein. So it begins at the lower margin of the teres major muscle. This is a continuation of the basilic vein. Basilic vein, it continues when the basilic vein ascends upward, and when it appears in the axilla, that is at the lower border of teres major muscle, then at that time its name changes as the axillary vein. Its name changes as axillary vein. So axillary vein is the continuation of the basilic vein, and it continues as a subclavian vein after the outer edge of first rib. Okay, if you see the relation of the arteries and vein, axillary artery and axillary vein, the axillary vein is slightly medially and anterior to the axillary artery. So in position, if you see the axillary artery and axillary vein, then axillary vein is slightly anterior and medial to the axillary artery. I told you it becomes the subclavian vein as the vessel crosses the lateral border of first rib. Here, from here to here, this is the subclavian vein. Tributaries of the axillary vein generally follow the branches of the axillary artery. So the tributaries of the axillary vein that follows the branches of the axillary artery in general. Okay. Other tributaries include the brachial veins that follow the brachial artery and the cephalic vein. This one, the cephalic vein, this is the cutaneous vein. This is subcutaneous vein, which is present on the lateral aspect of the upper limb. It ascends upward on the lateral aspect of the upper limb and it drains here into the axillary vein or the subclavian vein here. Here, axillary lymph node. This one is important from the examination point of view. Lots of clinical complication are appearing with the axillary lymph node also. Here the axillary, all the lymphatics from the upper limb, all the lymphatics that drain into the axillary lymph node. Here you can see it is shaded by green, the green structure in the image, the structure which are seen in green in color. Here, this indicates the lymphatics. Okay. So all the lymphatics from the upper limb they drain into the axillary lymph node. These are grouped. Okay, accordingly here according to the position. Here the pictorial group of lymph node, they lie along the lateral thoracic vessel. Lateral thoracic vessels. Okay, this pictorial group of lymph node. This pictorial group of lymph node, they receive the lymphatic drainage from upper half of the anterior wall of the trunk. So upper half of the anterior wall of the trunk and from the major part of the breast. From the major part of the breast also, the lymphatic drainage is to the pictorial group of lymph node. Okay, it is to the pictorial group of lymph node. The posterior or scapular group of lymph node here, a little bit posteriorly, they lie along the posterior, subscapular vessels on the posterior axillary fold of axilla. So on the posterior axillary fold, okay, here this pectoralis major muscle and minor muscle, they are cut and removed and axilla is displayed. This is the posterior wall. Over here it is displaying, trying to display. Okay, and here what do we call this scapular group of lymph node, okay, or posterior group of lymph node. It receives the lymph from the posterior wall of the axilla and upper half of the trunk and from the axillary tail of breast. From this extension you can see here, this extension, this one, it passes up to the axilla here, this which is also called as the axillary tail of spans from this breast. Okay, this one it also receives from this axillary tail of breast here, this subscapular group of lymph node. Lateral group here, okay, lateral group lie along the upper part of the humerus. Here this one is the humerus, upper part of the humerus, medial to the axillary vein. So these vessels, they are medial to the axillary vein. So these are the lateral group of axillary lymph node. They receive the lymph from the upper limb here. The central group, okay, these are the central group of lymph node. The central group of lymph node, they receives lymph from the preceding groups and drain into the apical group. This is the apical group of lymph node. So this central group, they receive the lymphatic drainage from the subscapular, pectoral, lateral, these all. And from the central group, they are draining into the apical group of lymph node. All the lymph node are drained into the apical group of axillary lymph node. Okay, so here receives some direct vessels from the floor of the axilla also. The central group, they receive some direct vessels from the floor of the axilla also, and they drain into the apical group of lymph node. They drain into the apical group of lymph node. Here, the apical group of lymph node, they lie deep to the clavipectoral fascia. The clavipectoral fascia, it is enclosing the subclavius muscle and pectoralis minor muscle. It is attached around the margin of the subclavian groove. Okay, so deep to this fascia. Okay, the axillary group of lymph node lies. This this apical group of lymph node, this apical group of axillary lymph node, this receives lymph from the central group, from the lateral group, from the subscapular group, and from the pectoral group. It receives the lymphatic drainage from this group of lymph nodes. Here the axillary nodes, they receive drainage from approximately 75% of the mammary gland. 75% of the mammary gland, 75% of the mammary gland, they drain the lymphatics into the axillary group of lymph nodes. The axillary lymph nodes, 75%. Here, if we talk about the clinical application, then here, if the lymphatic drainage of upper limb is damaged, the arm may swell and pitting edema, lymphedema may develop. So here, if the upper limb, if the drainage is damaged, if the drainage, lymphatic drainage of the upper limb is damaged, then the pitting edema, the pitting edema, it may develop. Okay, here this all drain into the from the upper limb. The lymphatic drainage is into the axillary group of lymph node. So if there is obstruction, if there is any damage, then the arm may swell. There will be the swelling in the arm. Okay, there will be swelling in the arm. And mastectomy or surgical clearance of axillary nodes done for the breast cancer might cause disruption of lymphatic drainage from upper limb. Okay, so during the mastectomy or this surgical clearance of axillary nodes, if this is clear, okay, then these are generally done for the breast cancer. This might cause, the term might is there. It's not that it will always cause, but might cause disruption of lymphatic drainage from upper limb. Okay, it might cause, because all the interstitial fluid as a lymph circulate in the lymphatics, is not it? In the lymph vessels through the lymphatic organs. They are just circulating. Here, the radiotherapy to the axilla to prevent the spread of metastatic disease causes a side effect of destruction of the tiny lymphatics as well as the cancer cell. So radiotherapy, which is done, the radiotherapy which is done to prevent the spread, okay, to prevent the spread of the metastatic disease, it causes a side effect. And it may destroy the tiny lymphatics. All the tiny lymphatics, they are destroyed, as well as the cancer cells. So cancer cells are also destroyed, but together with that, the tiny lymphatics are also destroyed. Okay, so together with this, we finished our class. Do you have any questions to ask for the discussion? The session is open for discussion.